Hello YouTube, welcome to my garage. In this episode, we are going to be installing a Radium Engineering Coolant expansion tank. Before we get into the installation portion, I want to say that if I had to do this over again, I would have done this differently than how it turned out in this video. So Radium Engineering makes two different kits, one that replaces a stock coolant expansion tank and one that relocates it to the firewall. So I had purchased the one that relocates it to the firewall for a couple different reasons, but mainly because I found this kit that was an open box item for a pretty significant discount. So it's no fault to the shop that sold it, as they had indicated that it is an open box, but never installed item, but there would be no returns or no refunds. So at the point I bought it, I was already kind of pot committed to this kit. At the time, I thought it would be interesting to move it over and clean up the area around the engine. Well, I found out that my supercharger takes up that space where this would be mounted to. So if it was a normally aspirated car, this would have worked out fine. So I ended up having to mount it near where the factory location was anyways. I would have to make up the bracket to do so, to make this work. So again, if I had to do this over, I would have just paid the extra and bought the other kit that has it at the stock location and be done with it. So moving on from that, looking at the system we are replacing, the Series 2 Lotus Elise and Exige, it comes with a Denso coolant expansion tank. Please note in the videos following this, I might call it overflow tank incorrectly a time or two, but the Lotus Elise has a radiator mounted up front in the horizontal position with coolant lines traveling up the driver's side and returning on the passenger side. There's also a separate loop for the heater, and then that goes the opposite way. That travels down the passenger side and comes up the driver side return. The coolant expansion tank is mounted on the driver's side in the engine bay, as you can see here. It also has a pretty complicated bracket for this car. The expansion tank though is used on several 2ZZ equipped vehicles like Celica's Matrix and all those cars. So if you were to try to find a brand new OEM tank, it's pretty expensive. I think it's over $300 for a brand new one. So if yours is cracked, Radium Engineering kit is almost the same amount to replace it. So I think that would be an easy buy on that one. There are other manufacturers that sell it. BOE and Moroso has their kits. I don't think I've ever seen a Moroso one installed, so I'm wondering where they put that. But I really like the Radium Engineering products. I have their kits on a lot of my cars, so as well as this car, I have a dual catch can installed. So I decided to just stick with them. So without further delay, let's get into the installation of this coolant expansion tank.
All right, YouTube, welcome to my garage. So today we're going to be mounting a remote mount Lotus coolant tank. This is made by Radium Engineering. This moves from the stock tank location. So stock tank is right here. It's going to remove it to the firewall area, and let's see if it's gonna fit. I do have a supercharger, so I did not think about that when I bought this. So let's see if it's gonna fit. This says 06 to 2011 at least. I think that just affects kind of where the fuses are mounted on the firewall. So the first thing we're gonna do, I already read the instructions. It comes in two halves, an upper and a lower. So the first thing we're going to do is have you installing these sight glasses. So we got these little like a push connection. So one goes in the top, one goes in the bottom, and then you end up putting a piece in between them so you can see the level of them. It does call for adding some like PTFE sealant, so it does come with some Teflon tape already on it, so I think it's just to lubricate it. Okay, so making sure I don't cross thread him. Let's get to this point. Let's see what wrench size it would be. Okay, it looks like 5/16 does kind of fit in here nicely. So gonna rotate that. And the idea is that when you're done, it will be pointing down to mate up with the... So, yep, let's point that down. Okay. Okay. And then the bottom part will be pointing up. Bottom part. And make sure not to cross them. Okay, once you get that, I'm going to install one of the hoses, and this is like one of those shark bite fittings. Once you get it set, it won't come out. You have to kind of push that in and then pull out at the same time. So this does come with a gasket. I usually don't put RTV or anything on a paper gasket or anything, but I'm just gonna make sure lubricate it a little bit. I don't think I need to do this. Okay, so it'll go in like right there. So what I'll need to do is let's see, push this on, and then also line up these socket head cap bolts. That comes from underneath, so I'm gonna have to flip this around. All right, so there is a this is where your cap goes. So there's a O-ring. Sits in here. And then I think this called for some Loctite, so on these ones. So going to put them down here. So the cap doesn't come with the kit. You have to get the cap separately. I got the factory 1.1 bar. That seemed a little tight. There we go. All right. Okay. So what else we got? So we got some of these connections. So for these, looks like there's only one way to put him. There's a smaller one and then two larger ones. So on the small one, gotta lubricate the threads. There's that O-ring in there. Okay, that should be the assembly. And then the last part, let's see, is this bracket. So, see if it goes on like that. Gonna put some Loctite on these. All right, and I think that's it for the assembly. So now we got a complete unit. All right, a little update on the coolant tank kit here, Radium coolant tank kit. So this was made to go against a firewall, and I think that would have been a good fit on a normally aspirated car. However, it doesn't fit with the supercharger here. So I've tried to modify the bracket, all that, and basically there's not enough room here. If I push it up too high, it's gonna basically hit this brace here. So there's no easy way to make this. I'm either modifying that or basically shoving it in here, and you know the engine does move a little bit. I don't want it to hit that. So I'm going to go back to putting it kind of where the old one was. I've tried to modify the old bracket in order to fit that spot, and you know, I kind of bent it. I made some relief cuts and all that, and I think that's a wasted effort. So what I've come up with is that there's actually a mount here, and I'm going to make some sort of bracket adapter that basically mounts it right here. This part clears the clam. It'll be right under the clam, so depend on how high I mount this. I can't go too high. I don't want it too low because then I run into the engine mounts. So there's a specific spot. It does make it hard to get to the cap, but I will just be able to get to the cap. The cap kind of sits right under here, or I can, you know, tilt the clam up, get to the cap if I need to. It does also make it that to read the level, I have to poke my head in and read the level. But that's where I'm at. Everything I did is reversible. So here's the old bracketry. So I could swap this back on and reuse the old one. But since I'm kind of pot committed with already purchasing this, and it was a clearance item and I kind of modify it, I'm going to try to make this work. So I have ordered some material, and I'm gonna show you guys what I came up with and see if that works. All right, continuing on the effort to mount this coolant tank. So what I did is I made an adapter, and basically this mounts like this. I had to have the standoffs here so I can actually get a bolt in. So this will mount like this, and then this will mount to there. So I'm gonna do the final mounting here, and it's gonna be a little bit of a reach to reach these parts on the car, but let me put some Loctite on these. I think this is gonna be the final assembly. Alright, so here it is mounted to the car. So the next thing is I'm gonna have to connect the various hoses. There's 2 connections on the bottom, 2 on top. There are six AN fittings. So I got a couple of these 90-degree doodads. So let's go ahead and connect that. Alright, YouTube, so here it is mounted and plumbed. I filled it up to do a leak check. I'm sure I'm gonna need to bleed it later. I do need to take care of this. I believe this is like a water recirc pump. So I'm gonna make a simple bracket to hold it. This was held down by kind of like a rubber lined hose clamp. So I'm gonna do something similar off of the existing bolt back there, right there. Maybe just a beam one, and then maybe do a clamp so it's not just flopping here. Otherwise I think I'm done with this.